Chapter 13. Penny, no! Mrs. V called out. Dragging Doodle behind her, Penny was scooted out of Mrs. V's front door and is halfway down the ramp from her porch shouting, "Bye-bye," from under her green baseball cap. Butterscotch, at home on her backyard, would be having a doggy fit if she could see Penny trying to bolt. It's one of those early November days that an artist would love. Red bronze leaves, bright gold sunlight. Leftover summer. I don't blame Penny for trying to bolt. Mrs. V scoops her up and brings her back into the house. "Go and work," Penny pouts. "Not today, honey buns," Mrs. V said firmly as she locks the front door. Penny loves wearing hats and playing dress up. Mom rarely buys fancy church lady hats for herself, but for Penny, she sometimes will pick out the crazy-looking straw hat with bows and ribbons and bring it home. At home, Penny spends a crazy amount of time in front of the hall mirror with a couple of Mom's plastic necklaces hanging down almost to her shoes, a purse on each arm and a hat tilted sideways on her head. "Gotta go to work," she'll say with one hand on her hip. Who has she ever even seen dressed like that going to work? Mom always asks, and we all crack up. "She's only 2. I'm not going to be able to afford that kid when she's old enough to go shopping on her own," Dad always says. He snaps every cute pose she makes with his cell phone camera. When Mrs. V sets Penny back down, Penny pokes her lips out, throws Doodle on the floor, and wraps both of her arms around her chest. I laugh, and I wish I could have enough coordination to have that attitude. "Here, Penny, why don't you just sit down and draw me a picture instead?" Mrs. V says, whipping out a box of crowns. Attitude forgotten. Penny grabs a handful and promptly begins to scribble all over the coloring book, as well as Mrs. V's table. I wish I could use crowns. I'd draw a rose with a velvety red bloom and a green stem and yellow-green leaves coming from it. I can see it so clearly in my mind, but of course when I put a pencil or a crown in my stupid tight little fingers, all I can manage are these squiggly lines, nothing that looks even close to a rose. I want to draw it for Rose. She has a rose design on her notebooks and book bag. I don't know where her mother finds such cool stuff. Rose's name really fits her. She's pretty and delicate and nice to be around, and if she has thorns like real roses do, I've never noticed. While Penny is busy with her crowns, Mrs. V checks her mail. She opens several envelopes and then gasps with surprise. "Guess what, girls?" she exclaims. "I've won a contest." I look at her with interest. Penny continues to scribble, ignoring both of us. "I entered an essay contest in the bookstore in the mall," she explains to me. The topic was why fish are so important to our world ecology. I point to food on my board and smirk. "No, silly," she reaches over and tickles me. "I wrote something about oceans and the balance of nature. I don't honestly remember what I said, but I won first prize, a trip for 6 to the new downtown aquarium. All expenses paid." How amazing! I've seen the commercials on television for the aquarium. It's supposed to have sharks and turtles and penguins and a million other sea animals. "Go?" I asked by pointing to my board. "Well, besides me, I don't know who else to take," she said, scratching her head and grinning. I kicked my foot straps loose. Me, I wanted to scream. Instead, I pointed to myself. Who could I take? Mrs. V teases, looking around the kitchen. I can tell she's trying hard not to laugh. Me, I jab. "Well, of course I'll take you, Mellow Yellow," Mrs. V says, smiling. "Just think of all the new words we'll gather. I'm going to write down the names of every single fish for you to learn." I slap my head, pretending to be upset. "So if I take you and Penny, your mom and your dad, and me, that's 5. I wonder who else we could take." She scrunches up her face, thinking. I know immediately. Who do you guys think she wants to take? Have any ideas? Rose could go with us. I spell her name out. R-O-S-E. And again, R-O-S-E. Then I hit please. Your friend Rose from school? I buck and kick with excitement. I think that's a great idea, Melody. I'll ask your parents and her parents, and if she's willing, we'll have a wonderful day. I can't stop kicking my feet. It takes several weeks before Mom and Dad are off work on a Saturday, but Thanksgiving weekend ends up working out for everybody. I have trouble sleeping the night before. Rose's parents seem really nice from what I could tell from listening to Mom's end of the conversation. I couldn't believe Rose wanted to come. She wanted to come with me, a kid, in a chair. At school, Rose whispered with me about the chip, just like I'd seen other girls do when they have secrets. I felt like a real girl. Now that the Saturday was finally here, we all piled into our SUV early in the morning. Even though the weather was turned out pretty chilly, I made sure Mom put on a really nice outfit for me. Cute jeans and no sweats. Rose hasn't said anything about what I'm wearing, but she keeps cooing over Penny. Your sister's adorable, Melody, Rose says, and I smile and nod. Penny reaches out her chubby little hands and claps. Woozy, she says. I think she just said my name, Rose exclaims. Your sister's not only cute, she's a genius. As we drive, Rose chatters with my parents and Mrs. V like she's known them all her life. I watch it all silently, thinking that this has to be the best day of my life. We went to the aquarium. Dad unloads my chair and eases me in it while Mom gets Penny's stroller out and straps her in. Rose pushes Penny as Mom pushes me so we can be side by side. The place is crowded. I guess it's because it's a holiday weekend and nobody pays any attention to me, which is perfect. I can almost forget who I am. Inside, the fish tanks go from the floor to the ceiling. I think of Ollie. He might have been happy here. In one tank, sharks swim overhead, just like we're actually looking up from the ocean floor. Okay, so Ollie might not have been so happy in that tank. I've never seen so many fish. From all over the world, it seems. Fish with spikes and spots, fish with markings so beautiful they look painted. Penny slaps at the glass whenever a fish comes close. Fishies! More fishies! Mrs. V, as promised, writes down names of species and takes pictures so I can remember when we get back home. Mom and Dad whisper together like teenagers. I've never seen them so relaxed. We stood in front of every tank. I love the jellyfish, which reminds me of streams of shiny cloth, and the lionfish, which really do look like little swimming lions. At the seahorse tank, Rose observes their heads pointed backwards. She seemed to be having a great time. Then, from around the corner, came the two people I least want to run into. Any ideas who it is? It's Molly and Claire. They're with a Girl Scouts troop. They're fake bumping into each other, not paying much attention to their group leader, who is telling them about the percentage of salt found in ocean water. Molly and Claire, dressed exactly alike in jeans, long-sleeve t-shirts, and scout vests, look at Rose with surprise. Hey, Rose, you here with your mom? Claire asks. No, Rose says, walking away from us and towards them. Your dad? Molly asks, looking at me like I smell bad, and she's acting like my parents are invisible. I'm here with Melody and her family, Rose mumbles. On purpose? Claire shrieks. Both she and Molly start laughing loudly. It's not so bad, Rose says quietly, but I heard her. Mom starts to say something to the girls, but Dad takes her arm. They're children, he tells her. Let them work it out themselves. Mom has those daggers in her eyes and the sharp points she shoots at people who say dumb things about me, but she stays quiet. Her fists are balled. Mrs. V, however, isn't going to let anybody stop her. From her almost 6-foot height, she towers over Molly and Claire. You, girl with the braces on your teeth. Claire looks up at her stunned. Yes, ma'am? Claire has sense enough to say. Why do you think your parents spent good money getting you braces? Huh? Claire looked confused. Molly has quietly disappeared into her scout troop. Your teeth were imperfect, so your parents got you braces. And one day you'll thank them when you get a date for prom, Mrs. V roars. The whole scout troop, plus a few other visitors to the aquarium, stopped to listen to her. What do my teeth have to do with anything? Claire asks, looking nervously. Some people get braces on their teeth. Some people get braces on their legs. For others, braces don't work, so they need wheelchairs and walkers and such. You're a lucky girl that you only have messed up teeth. Remember that. Yes, ma'am, Claire says again, and then she scurries off to join her friends. Rose walks back to us, a little embarrassed, I think. Claire can be clueless, she whispers to me. You think? After a few more tanks, Penny gets tired and starts to whine, so we leave the aquarium before we even get to the penguins. We take Rose home, and she thanks us properly and says she had a really good time. But did she?